All right, Erev Tov, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. It is a big zechut, it's a big honor to be back at Beit Yosef. This place feels like home. I say that a lot, but it really does feel like home. And it's a zechut to be here. Thank you for everything that Matityahu did to make this happen, and to Benayam, to Julio. I saw you already working. I don't know what you're working on, but I know you're up to good stuff, so Baruch Hashem. For those of you who tonight is going to be your first class in the series, it's okay. It's a standalone class. So everything I'm going to say tonight, you don't need any prior knowledge to understand it. For those of you who have been in the last two classes, you're going to reap the benefits because this is the continuation to the other two classes, and hopefully that everybody will walk away with something important and valuable. Why am I here? That's a good question. I was thinking about that the whole way here. Why am I here? Right now is my prime real estate. So getting away in Elul for me is like an accountant getting away in April. Like it's the wrong season for me to be traveling. It's crazy. It's crunch time for me. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, Sukkot, Simchat Torah. It's all happening right now. Like everything is happening now. But what can I do? Part of the job description is to help people get ready for the high holidays that are just around the corner. That's why we've started saying Selichot already since the new month of Elul. We've all been singing Ben Adam Alecha Nirda. We can't sleep. Now is not the time to slack. Now is the time to do as much as you can because we're walking straight into the high holidays. As the Boy Scouts say, you got to be prepared. And so part of what I do is helping people prepare, but that's not the reason why I'm here. The reason why I'm here, aside from that I love you, is the reason why I teach Torah in the first place. And that is that I heard too many people teaching Torah the wrong way for me to be quiet when other people are teaching Torah. I'll tell you what I mean. Usually at this time period, people go around trying to get other Jews to do Teshuvah. It's the high holidays. They're going to talk to you about your sins, how bad you are. They're going to pull out all kinds of interesting pieces of the Gemara, the Talmud, pieces of the Zohar. If you don't do this, you're going to burn in boiling feces in the next world. If you don't do that, you're going to come back in a Gilgul, a reincarnation of your grandmother's cat. If you don't do this, and you're going to be burned, and the angels are going to chase you from one side of the world, the other side of the world. People say some pretty frightening stuff. It's like straight out of Halloween material. But it's pretty terrifying. And they think that the best way to get people to do Teshuvah is to do Teshuvah out of fear. If I can scare you straight, and what happens? I'll get you to keep Shabbat, I'll get you to keep kosher, whatever mitzvah I decide is going to be important, I can scare you to do it, and then I got another point for the team. Now we have somebody else who's doing some kind of mitzvah because we scared them to do it. That's pretty terrible. Yeah. You raising your hand? Yours? No, I was once a young rabbi in a Beit Knesset, which I'm no longer part of. And there was a rabbi that came into the community. And he was paid a lot of money to come to this community. He came. And he spoke. And it was full, I'm not going to lie, mostly of Israelis. I don't know what it is. One day I'm going to do a PhD thesis on why Israeli Judaism prefers the sadistic elements of Judaism in it. People like to get beat up. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why it is that way, but I've seen too much of it to say it's a mistake. This rabbi walked in there, and he told a whole room of people, you keep Shabbat, you guys aren't even Jewish. If it's up to me, we don't even count you for a minyan. If you say a blessing on the Torah, I won't even say amen. And he went through the whole room. And then after he finished teaching, I don't know what it was. It was like a hit and run. The guy came in there, told everybody they weren't Jewish, they wouldn't count them for a minyan. They're not. And then he started fundraising for his organization. And if I told you that rabbi walked away from that night at San Diego, small crowd, $40,000 he walked away with. I remember turning to my wife saying, I'm in the wrong business. Like this guy, I don't know what he's doing. He's walking in, telling everybody they're terrible, they're evil, and they're paying him for it. There's a word for that, but that's not something we'll talk about in Beit Knesset. It is a terrible situation. And then my wife turned to me and said, the reason why people like him can talk is because people like you aren't doing your job. You're not doing your job. You have to help people do Teshuvah the right way. And until you do that, then you're enabling people like that to do what they do. And my wife, she's my greatest teacher in that regard, and she set me straight. And it was that point in time, she said, look at your YouTube channel. She told me, you have 3 videos on YouTube. They're made in some guy's camcorder, he's winding up the film as he puts it inside. This person has thousands of classes all over the world. And ever since then, Shiviti was born. My class is born. Those of you who've learned with me online know that it's not usually me setting up the camera. Usually there's someone who actually knows what they're doing. We have, Baruch Hashem, a presence all over the globe. And the whole purpose of it is the first thing that we study together. The Rambam says, Eino domeh, it's not similar, the person who returns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love to the person that returns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of fear. Both of them are doing the same thing. They're both observing the same mitzvot, but they're not the same people. Imagine if I told you, you're in a relationship not because you love her, but because you're afraid of leaving her. Meaning, if I had guts, I would leave. But what can I do? I just don't have the guts, so I'm there, I'm stuck. What kind of relationship is that? Who would sign up intentionally to be in that kind of relationship? But how many Jewish people are in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not because they want to be there, but because they have no choice. They're too afraid to leave. They hear about the lightning bolts, and they hear about the hellfire, and they hear about all the things that are going to happen to them if they go. And so the choice is, I hate this God, I hate this religion, I hate this people, but now it's high holidays, and my parents told me you better show up for a Kol Nidre to the synagogue, or else what are you good for? Who wants Jews to operate like that? And by going around and scaring people straight, the only thing we're doing is reinforcing that kind of Judaism. Not a Judaism of love, but a Judaism of fear. When you see two people in a consensual relationship that love each other and want each other and they care about each other, you sometimes walk away inspired. Like, wow, one day maybe I'll love somebody like that. That's a beautiful relationship. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu tonight by Selichot, Habet laberit. Look at the covenant that we made. We made an agreement, you and I, in Har Sinai. Va'al tafer beritecha itanu. And don't mess up your promises now. We are in a consensual relationship with the Creator of the universe. This is nothing of compulsion here. There's no force. This is not violating anybody's will. It's a choice. And the only way to do Teshuvah is by bringing people back by love. And that's the last two classes, if I had to summarize what they were, was the Rambam and his opinion of what does it mean to return to God out of love. And you have the sources there, so you can look at them on your own. And the second is a letter of Rabbi Yosef Masas, was the chief rabbi of Haifa. Before that was a rabbi in Morocco and Algeria. And his attitude was, especially in today's generation, it doesn't help when you beat people up. Even the people that do just a few mitzvot. Somebody comes to the synagogue once a year for Yom Kippurim. Don't make them feel bad now that they're here. Who are you picking on? You're picking on the Jewish person that still has a connection to their Judaism. You know how many Jews out there don't even care that it's Yom Kippur? You want to go beat somebody up, go beat them up. But the people that come, the people that are here, that show up, that are present, why pick on them? And I remember having that feeling with that rabbi, which was, who are you picking on? Who are you picking on? You're picking on the good Jews. They were mostly Israelis, I told you, who have every reason now that they're floating in California or Oregon or wherever they are, not to show up to the synagogue. They're free. This is the Wild West. And they show up anyways. And they come anyways. And they choose to pray. So who cares they drove here on Shabbat, but they came on Shabbat? They came? Where did they drive? They came to the synagogue on Shabbat? So now what are you going to do? That population of people that actually cares, those are the ones you're going to send to hell? Why don't you send to hell all the other people that don't care? But we have something wrong. We pick on the people that we're supposed to be bringing closer. And who do we learn that from? Because the first thing we always hear, you're an apologetic. Stop apologizing to people. Stop being so soft on them. Nobody ever becomes a man by being soft on them. Now, I don't know if I have a goal that everyone should be a man. I never saw this masculinity to be such a great character trait. But what is important? To emulate the Creator of the universe. There was a rabbi. Can I bother someone for a cup of water? I'm sorry that I didn't get myself. Yeah, thank you, Julio. There was a rabbi who lived in Tzfat. You know what? Anyone been here to Tzfat? Yeah, Tzfat. Northern Israel. The Arizal used to live there. Rabbi Chaim Vital. Lecha Dodi that you sing on Friday night. The author, Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, he lived there. If you ever sing Yedid Nefesh, he lived there. Tzfat is the center of the universe for mostly the Kabbalists. That was their headquarters, especially in the days after the expulsion from Spain. I'm going to teach on Kabbalah tonight. I hope you're okay with that. Yeah. One of the rabbis who lived there, his name was the Ramak, acronym of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Likely, I don't know to tell you the truth, but Cordovero sounds like it might have come from Cordova at some point in time. Thank you so much, Hashem, for blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero wrote a very small book. You can find it in English. It exists in English. It's maybe called in English the palm tree of Devorah. Yeah, they keep it so. We call it Tomer Devorah. Devorah was the prophetess of the Jewish people. My wife is also Devorah. But Devorah was a prophetess of the Jewish people. She famously sat under a palm tree. Anyone familiar with why she sat under a palm tree? Anybody familiar with the rabbinic legends on why Devorah, the prophetess, sat under a palm tree? They say there are two reasons why she sat under the palm tree. One, it gave a lot of shade, but it didn't have any foliage covering her so that she could meet with people. And while it was private, but it wasn't so secluded that she was in an inappropriate closeness with other people. But two was that the palm tree is a very interesting tree. It has one trunk, and only at the end it separates into branches. Unlike other trees that all over the tree it separates into branches. Devorah wanted the Jewish people to recognize that no matter if we are Sephardic or Ashkenazi or we're whatever denomination of Judaism you belong to or which background you come from, you're an American, you're an Israeli, it doesn't matter where. All Jewish people are part of the same tree. And if there are any differences, it's very minute. It's the branches on the top of the tree. But actually, the stock of Israel is the same. We're all the same. We're all part of the same people. And that was the symbolism that she wanted to give the Jewish people every time they met her. Devorah, the prophetess, therefore embodied the love of the Jewish people. And when Rabbi Moshe Cordovero wanted to write a book of Kabbalah, he called his book The Palm Tree of Devorah. He was a very interesting personality, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. In fact, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, who wrote Shulchan Aruch? Matityahu. Who wrote Shulchan Aruch? Rabbi Yosef Karo. We call him, in the Sephardic tradition, Maran. When Maran wrote,
We're like a tree, Rabbi. We got different branches, different leaves. We're all connected to that roots of that tree.
Great, I accept that too. Yeah. Maran, when he came to Tzfat and he wanted to study Kabbalah, he went to the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the famous Kabbalist, to study. And he was already the chief rabbi of the city. He was the head of the Beit Din, the rabbinic court. He had a yeshiva. And every time he would come to class, he would fall asleep. He'd fall asleep. And after 3 times, he went to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, listen, I don't understand. I'm a famous rabbi. I don't fall asleep in class. It's not my thing. And he said, listen, the type of teachings that I teach, they don't resonate with your soul. You have to find a different teacher. Teachers are very personal things. You have to find a teacher that connects to your soul. Go to my friend, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Even though he teaches a completely different discipline of spirituality than I do, but he's the right match for your soul. And he went to him, and then he became a student of his, a very good friend and a dear student. This book intends to teach Jewish people how to be more like God. If there is a creator, and the creator is good, so how do we emulate the goodness of the creator? Tonight, when we say slichot, we say, En melech yoshev al kisei rachamim u'mitnaheg b'chasidut. We say the 13 attributes of God. He is kind and compassionate. This whole book is intended to show us the way that God is kind and compassionate is the way that we're supposed to behave also. It's a very quick book. You can read it in a very short amount of time. I took some excerpts out of this book because I think that it's very relevant for us. The way that we treat other people is not something that we made up and it's better for outreach or it's better for the Jews if you don't beat them up. It's actually how we emulate the Creator. I'm going to read in Hebrew. Don't be scared. There's English translation. But better than English translation, I'm going to translate it into English too. So you can listen. You can follow along. Whatever you do, don't be intimidated by the text. I'm on page 4 of this PDF. On source 6, on page 4. Hina kadosh baruch hu mitnaheg im Yisrael bederech zeh. This is the way the creator of the universe behaves with the Jewish people. Lomar ma eseh, what can I do liYisrael to the Jewish people? V'hem kirovai, they're my relatives. She'er basar yesh li mahem. I'm literally the same flesh of the Jewish people. We're part of God. Shehem bat zug lakadosh baruch hu. We are the spouse of God. V'koreh la biti, God calls us our daughter, Achoti, my sister, Imi, my mother. We are in a relationship with the creator of the universe. So just like somebody in your family does something wrong, you usually try to help them figure it out. You sometimes even will cover things up for your family members. That's the same thing the creator of the universe does with us. כדפרשו ז"ל, וכתיב ישראל עם קרובו ממש קרובה יש לו עמהם ובניו הם. We are literally relatives of the creator. We are his children. By the way, when I say him and he, when I speak about the creator, I'm sure it's clear to you that God is neither male or female, but simply, colloquially, we usually say he or him. If you would say she or her, it would not be any different in terms of the way we speak about the creator. והיינו לשארית נחלתו לשון שר בשר וסוף סוף הם נחלתו ומה אומר? Says God, what should I do? אם אנישם, if I punish the Jewish people, הרי הכאב עליי, then I'm hurting myself. Because when we suffer, God suffers. לפי שאינו סובל צערם וקלונם מפני שהם שארית נחלתו. One thing God can't tolerate. He can tolerate many things. One thing he can't handle, people who hurt other people. If I am part of the Jewish people, and this extension applies to the world, but he's talking here to Jews. If we are children of the Creator, if somebody hurts your child, how do you react to that? What if they're right? What if the reason they hurt your child was for the right reason? Your child did something wrong. How does it make you feel about them anyways? Benaya, if someone came to pick on your kid, you'd be okay with it? I once told my wife when I first sent my girls to preschool, I said, I want to explain to you how this works. If one of these teachers ever does something to my children, I'm going to end up in prison. That's how it's going to work. So it's better for all of us if I don't get involved in what happens at school. Like if you tell me that a teacher did something, just don't tell me. First you take care of it, then come back to me afterwards, because once I get angry that someone doesn't like it, but what if your kid is wrong? My kid can never be wrong. I grew up with a mother like that. My mother, she raised me. I didn't get in trouble so much in school, but if we got in trouble, she would tell the principal, it can't be that, the wrong kid. My son would never do that. And she'd pick us up, tell the principal he's a liar, and then take us home and kill us, right? But in front of the world, you don't touch my kid. My kid is God's gift to humanity. It's not a surprise, guys, that Yeshu, Jesus walked around thinking he was God's son. Like his mom, she told him all day long, you're God's gift to humanity. He actually walked away thinking he was. But at the end of the day, that's how all the Jewish moms are treating their kids. The same way with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So you walk in the synagogue, you start beating up God's children. What do you think God thinks about rabbis like that? You're picking on my kids? Yeah, but they don't keep Shabbat. I don't care what they do. They're my kids. If you have a problem with my kids, come talk to me. Don't pick on them. Says the Ramak, this is literally what HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught us. At the bottom of page 4, Kach ha'adam im chavero. That's the same way we should treat our friends. Kol Yisrael hem she'er basar elu im elu. Not only are we all related to the Creator, but we're all related to each other. Mipnei she'neshamot kilulot yachad. Our souls are literally linked with other people's souls. Yesh b'zeh chelek zeh u'b'zeh chelek zeh. We are all interlinked with each other. ולכך אינו דומה מרובים העושים את המצוות, וכל זה מפני כללותם, ולכך פירשו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה. Okay, wait for a second, on page 5. We are all linked with each other. We say in Hebrew that when you marry somebody, they use a Hebrew word, they say a soulmate. In Hebrew, the word is actually a soul partner. It's the other half of your soul. Human beings, according to Jewish tradition, are not created whole. We're created in halves. And when we find someone to love and marry, that person completes us. It's why under the chuppah, under the wedding canopy, one of the blessings we say, Baruch atah. We have 7 blessings we say. One of them is Yotzer ha'adam. He who creates a human being. But now you made a human being. The guy's 37 years old. Now you're saying Yotzer ha'adam. Why do you say Yotzer ha'adam when they were born? Because they weren't born a human being. They were born half a human being. What happens when they get married? These 2 halves join together and they become one. Tell me in Hebrew. Somebody speak Hebrew. What's the plural of ish, a man? Ish. How do you say many ish? Anashim. How do you say isha, woman, in plural? Nashim. How do you say plural adam? Why? Because adam is one. Human beings are one. It's when you take an ish and an isha and you put them together, they become an adam. That's why at the chuppah we recognize that now we've created a human being. The Jewish people and people in general are linked with each other. You know, you say an interesting blessing. After I finish this glass of water, there's an after blessing that I say. We say, Borei nefashot rabot vechesronan. God, you created many souls, and also the things that mazach chisaron. The thing they're missing. Why do I praise God for creating people that are missing things? What kind of prayer is that? You made such a good dinner, except the food wasn't so good. What, who? Tell me.
To have a purpose, to find the completion form.
The beauty of the world is this. Whatever you don't do, I do. Whatever I don't do, you do. Whatever we don't do, she does. And we complete each other. That interconnection of people, only the creator of the universe could figure out. When we see other people that aren't doing mitzvot like us, or not observing like us, the first thing that you think is not, look how bad they are. It's, wait a second. So then, I'm doing it for them. I'm holding up the fort when they're not doing it. There's a story about a Hasidic Rebbe, and I'm not telling you that the story is a one you should emulate, okay? Halachically. This Rebbe, his name was Rabbi David of Lelov. He came from a town in Europe called Lelov. Rabbi David walked into a synagogue, and it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He walks into a synagogue to get ready to pray his morning prayers, shacharit. And there's a guy sitting in the synagogue, and he's watching the famous rabbi. He comes at 1 o'clock. He rolls in to pray. He starts putting on his talit, his tefillin. He's about to start praying the morning services. The guy starts laughing at him from the corner. Rabbi David said, what's wrong with you? He said, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now you're starting morning services? Where have you been? What do you mean where I've been? He said, we were all here praying at 7 o'clock. So let me ask you a question. When you prayed at 7 o'clock, did you pray for me also, or just for yourself? So what do you mean? What does that have to do with anything? He said, if you prayed for me also, then I also prayed at 7 o'clock. And if you prayed just for yourself, you think God likes selfish people like you? Part of our job in the world is to do things for other people. We fill in what other people don't do. Just like they do for us what we don't do for them. That's part of the way humanity works. When you see a deficiency, chesronan, in somebody else, don't be upset about it. That just tells you that you have something more to do because this person isn't doing it. This is the way that the Creator intended for the world to operate. There are no perfect people. There was an Israeli singer. He sang a song. Biladayich, ani chatzi ben adam. Yeah, without you, I'm a half a person. What do you mean without you, I'm half a person? He didn't know. He was a mikubal, must have been. Yeah, he didn't know that without his girlfriend or his wife, he only is a half a person. He's right. Without other people, we are nothing. It's why Jewish people prefer to pray together in groups. It doesn't have to be a minyan. Matitya, one of the first things we spoke about at Beit Yosef. What happens if you don't have a minyan? Do you still pray in a group?
You still do.
Absolutely. You don't have to have 10 men over the age of bar mitzvah. If we show up and there's 5 of us in a room, 4 ladies and 1 guy, what, there's no use praying together? Of course there's a use praying together. We are people that are coming together to do something. It might not be a minyan, who cares? But we do. Which halakha? Wait, hold on. Why do you need 10 people? Because it's better to pray with 10 people.
But if I have 5, I can say the name of the God.
Yeah, not everything. You have to skip Kaddish. You have to skip certain parts. Yeah. But there's still value in praying with other people. Yeah? Hine el kabir lo yimas tefilat rabim. The God on high doesn't turn away prayers that are done together with other people. It's an important thing to pray with other people. Should I tell you how important that is? I want to hear something crazy? You might not like this, but I'll tell you something crazy. There was a very famous Kabbalist who lived in Italy. I'm looking at you, Matidel, again. I know Italian runs deep over here. His name, Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg. You heard of him? Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg printed books of some rabbis you might know. The Ben Ish Chai, Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, Rabbi Chaim Palaji of Turkey. He was a famous Kabbalist in his generation. He became the chief rabbi of Leghorn, Italy, Livorno, at the age of 21. Talking about 150 years ago, more, maybe a little more, closer to 200 years ago. Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg wrote a book. I suggest you read it. It's harder to find in Hebrew than it is in English. So that it was written in French, translated to English and Hebrew. Hebrew one's been out of print. The English one is still around. It's called Israel and Humanity. Israel ve'enoshut. You can get it on Amazon for like $30. Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg believed that even though there's only one true religion of connecting to God, and that was Judaism, but that other religions have a purpose in the world, and if they could refine their purpose, then we can all get along in a very deep and profound way. One of the things he believed very much, that Torah, there's two Torot. There's an Israelite Torah and a worldly Torah. Israelite Torah, don't eat shellfish. Why not? Don't mix meat and milk together. What's wrong with mixing meat and milk together? Did anybody ever go to eat a cheeseburger and die because they had a cheeseburger? There's nothing ethically wrong with eating meat and milk together. There's nothing healthily wrong eating those things. Don't make a tea on Shabbat in boiling hot water. What does that have to do with anything? There are certain laws that God gave the Jewish people because God gave them to the Jewish people. That's what it is. There are other laws, respecting your parents, doing business honestly, don't steal, don't speak bad about other people, don't hurt other people, don't be cruel to animals. There's a whole list of mitzvot. Those aren't just for Jewish people, they're for the whole world. And if we could teach the whole world the part of the Torah that is relevant to everybody, then the Jewish people would fulfill their mission towards humanity and show all the religions in the world, maybe you got some of the God parts wrong, but the part of how to treat other people, you did it right. Let's keep doing that. How important was that to Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg? When he was too old to go to synagogue, and he lived in the Jewish quarter in Livorno, Italy, he used to wait, I'm afraid to tell you the story, he used to wait until the church bells rang, and then he would pray with his tefillin. Because he said he'd rather pray when other children of God are praying to God than to pray alone. Now that kind of stuff got his books burned in Syria and his books banned in Israel. But at the end of the day, this is a man who recognized that when we do things together, the world is that much of a better place. Let's look on page 5 at the bottom. ולכך, and therefore, ראוי לאדם להיות חפץ בטובתו של חברו. A person should always try to do good for other people. ואינו טובה על טובת חברו, וכבודו יהיה חביב עליו כשלו, שהרי הוא ממש. When you see another person, they need something, they need help. They have a flat tire. They tell a story about a guy in New York. His car broke down on the side of the road. Some guy is driving by and sees a man on the side of the road with a kippah on. His car broke down, so he pulls over. 2 other Jewish guys pull over also. And between the 3 of them, they pick up his car, they put a new tire, they send him on his way. But before they go, they say, hey, listen, we want to ask, which synagogue do you pray at? The synagogue? I don't even know what a synagogue is. I don't know what a synagogue is. Maybe shul, but Knesset, what word do you use? Where do you pray? He says, I don't pray. I'm not even Jewish. I'm not Jewish. Why are you wearing a kippah? So, my mother told me, why pay every month for AAA? Just keep this thing in your glove compartment. If your car ever breaks down on the side of the road, put it on your head. Some Jewish guy is going to stop and help you out. There is something about Jewish people, explain it or don't explain it. We care about each other. And part of the reason we take care of each other is because we recognize that we are each other. I am you, and you are I, and we are responsible for each other. And if we don't look out for each other, then who's going to look out for us? And we have a lesson to teach the world. The world should also operate that way. The people should see that someone else needs something. You should do it too, because you are me. At the end of the day, we're part of the same soul. We're part of God's creations, and we're responsible for each other. That's why we were commanded in the book of Vayikra, "Ve'afta l'reacha kamocha," love your fellow like yourself. We are literally like ourselves. We are the same people. וראוי שירצה בכשרות חברו ולא ידבר בגנותו כלל ולא ירצה בו כדרך שאין הקדוש ברוך הוא רוצה בגנותנו ולא בצערנו מטעם הקרובה. In the same way that God doesn't want us to be hurt and doesn't want our bad secrets to come out and He covers for us, is the same way we should treat other people. Not to hurt them, not to make them feel bad, to cover for them. Because we're all related to each other. And if you look on page 5 on the left side, וזו מידה ראויה לאדם להתנהג בה על חברו. This is the proper behavior that you should have to other people in general. אפילו שהוא רשאי להוכיח בייסורים את חברו, את בניו, והם מתייסרים, לא מפני זה ירבה תוכחתו, ולא יחזיק כעסו. You have children. Your job is to educate those children. You're a boss, you have employees, you're a manager. People have to listen to you. You're in some type of position of authority. Somewhere in your world, there are people who listen to you. Just because people listen to you doesn't mean you have to be hard on them. At the end of the day, those people are part of you also. You want to be kind to them. Don't be angry at them. Why? Who taught us that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The creator of the universe said, I'm not angry at the Jewish people either. The Torah says that if you're walking along the road and you see your friend has a donkey and the donkey is suffering because it's carrying a weight on it, but you hate this person, you hate them, what should you do? You help them. What is anyone know the Hebrew word for how you help them? Azov, ta'azov, imo. Literally means you should let him go, but in Hebrew it means you should help him out. A rabbi say, why do you hate this person? And the rabbi say, because they're a bad person. They do things that are wrong. That's why you hate them. But even then, you should azov ta'azov. Let it go. Let it go. If someone needs your help right now, then that means you were called by the Creator into a situation where you can help somebody else. I'll tell you a story. It happened to me. That synagogue I once told you about. They made my life hell. I ended up leaving that synagogue. Those people did some pretty terrible things to me. Fast forward a few years later. It was very late at night. And my phone rings. And on the phone is one of the board members of that synagogue. And I've been thinking already 4 years, 5 years, how do I get revenge on this guy? It made my life miserable. I told my wife, you know what? I'm not answering the phone. She says, Jonathan, do you understand? If this person is calling you, that must mean they need your help. And if they need your help and they're calling you, even despite all that they did to you, it's probably because there's nobody else around who can help them. And if they're putting themselves in that kind of vulnerable place to ask you for help after everything they've done to you, what, are you not going to step up to the plate and help them? See, I have a problematic wife. What am I supposed to do? So what I do, I answer the phone and I help them. Because she's right. Why was I put in that situation if it wasn't to help another person? Sometimes it's an important thing to do. There's a chief rabbi of Israel, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi. You know his name? Rabbi Kook. Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook. The ultra-Orthodox community of Jerusalem didn't like him too much. He was a complicated personality. He was very involved in the Zionist movement. He was very close to the kibbutznikim, and they viewed him as being too laid back of a chief rabbi. He wasn't enough of a zealot for them. And he had a neighbor who lived on top of him. He lived just off of Rehov Yafo. If you know Jerusalem a little bit, there's the Ben Yehuda area where everyone goes to drink and have parties. Right across the street is a little street. That's where Rav Kook lived. Rav Kook, every day when he would come out of his house, the neighbor from upstairs was a religious guy. He was the president of his synagogue. The Gabbai officially. You have a Gabbai here? Yeah? Who's the Gabbai? Benaya's the Gabbai. He was the Gabbai of the synagogue. There's a lot of jokes about Gabbais of synagogues, but I don't know. Somebody else wants to be the Gabbai. Yes. He would take the trash can from upstairs and pour it on the chief rabbi's head. And he taught his kids to curse the chief rabbi in the streets. Every time you saw him, throw rocks at him. And that's how he lived for years. He knew the first time he walks out the door, he's going to get trash thrown at him. He goes inside, he changes, and then goes back to the synagogue. Fast forward 15, 20 years later. This man's daughter became very sick. You're talking about Israel before there was a state of Israel. So this is still mandatory Palestine. And they tell him that none of the doctors in Israel are able to help her. There's one doctor, he lives out in Switzerland. And he's a Jewish doctor who helps people in Israel get health care. But you have to get a special request because he'll send the money to bring the patient over and take care of her. He was a very wealthy doctor. That's what the guy did, anything to save his daughter's life. He wrote a letter. He gets back a letter in the mail. The letter says, listen, I don't know who you are. I only know one rabbi in Jerusalem. His name is Rabbi Kook. And if you can get a letter from him saying that you're an upstanding man, I'll take your daughter. Now what's he supposed to do? 15 years of emptying trash on this guy's head. What's he supposed to do? He's not sure. And he's debating, should he go to him, should he not go to him? He said, listen, it's his daughter's life. He's got to humble himself. So he comes to the synagogue of Rabbi Kook and he starts walking towards the office, and all of a sudden, the students, they come to block the door. And they say, hey, slow down. We know you. What are you doing here? He says, I'm here to ask the rabbi some advice. No, you're not here. Where's the trash can? Where's the stuff you're throwing at him? He says, I promise you, look, you can check me. I'm just here to talk to the rabbi. Rabbi Kook heard all the commotion and says, please let him in. He lets him in, and the guy is busy shaking in his chair over there. He says, Rabbi Kook, you have a student in Switzerland. He's a doctor. He wants to help my daughter. I need a letter. Could you write a letter of recommendation for me? Rabbi Kook says, absolutely. Anything to help another person. He takes a pen and writes, to my dear student, Rabbi Dr. So-and-so, says, this man is my neighbor. He's been my neighbor for a long time. Our families know each other for many, many years. He's the gabbai of the synagogue. He's very well respected in Jerusalem. I only have wonderful things to say about him. Please do me a personal favor and save his daughter. Sign, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Cook. The guy takes the letter. He's barely able to say thank you. He thinks maybe Rav Cook lost his mind. Maybe he doesn't recognize him. He took the letter. He runs out the door. All of a sudden, Rav Cook jumps out of his chair also, starts chasing him down Rehov Yafo, down Jaffa Street. Says, stop! I'm not stopping. You can't think about it. Stop! I'm not giving you back the letter. Says, I don't want the letter. Just stop for 1 second. He stops. He says, please put out your hand. He says, no, I have the letter. He puts the letter behind his back. He puts out his hand. And Rav Cook puts a sack of coins in his hand. I said, what's that for? He says, I want part of the mitzvah. I want to pay for your ship fare all the way to Switzerland to take care of your expenses. That way I can also have a part in healing your daughter. There are people like that in the world. That even though people have done them harm, they're able to be the better people when the time comes. I'm not telling you that it's always the healthiest thing to do. There are people that have done so much bad to you that the next encounter with them, likely for your safety, you have to stay away. We're not talking about people that are hurting you, but people that didn't do you any good. When you are called to help them, if there's a reason that you were in that situation, it's likely because the creator of the universe wanted you there. Let's look here on the bottom of page 5. וכך יהיה האדם, and that's the way that a person should behave. אף אם יפגע ברשעים, even if you meet evil people, really not good people. אל יתאכזר כנגדם. Don't be cruel to them. או יחרפם וכיוצא. Don't denigrate them, humiliate them. אלא ירחם עליהם. Have compassion over them. ויאמר and say, סוף סוף הם בני אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. At the end of the day, we're part of the same family. They're children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. אם הם אינם כשרים, אבותיהם כשרים והגונים. Even though they're not good people, but they come from good people. והמבזה הבנים, מבזה האבות. And if you hurt someone's children, you're hurting their parents also. ואין רצוני שיתבזו אבותיהם על ידי, ומכסה עלבונם ומתקנם כפי כוחו. And therefore, he recognizes that his job is not to hate these people, but to help these people. Because if I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for the good people that came before you. And on our last page here, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero tells us 2 more things. Therefore, tzarich ha'adam. There was a rabbi who lived in Rome. He was the chief rabbi of Rome. He was from a Sephardic family in Jerusalem. His name was Rabbi Israel Moshe Chazan. Rabbi Israel Moshe Chazan later became the chief rabbi of Rome. He then became a rabbi in London and then went back to Israel. He wrote in one of his books that he's so disappointed with the rabbinic leadership of his generation. I'm talking about a few hundred years ago. He said there's so many different ways that the rabbis of the generation are able to help the Jews get away with breaking the Torah. Listen to this. They cover for them. They make good excuses for them. They make them look good. Hey, you don't do that, but you do something else really nicely. He said now all of these rabbis are so honest. They're busy selling out the Jewish people all the time to God. He said, but part of our job is to take care of God's kids. We're the babysitters. Our job is to make the kid look good. You know, sometimes my mom will watch my kids. And she'll give them back to me after a whole day having my kids. I said, Ima, how are the kids? And I could tell that she's not telling me the truth. They were terrific. They listened the whole day. Why aren't you telling me the truth? Because her job as a grandma is to protect my kids from me. Part of her job is to make sure that I'm not upset at my children because of something they did. She already forgave them. Why do you have to know about it? None of your business. I dealt with it. Saba and Safta took care of it already. That's our job as leaders of the Jewish community. We take care of our problems. We don't sell people out to God. We take care of those problems internally so that when they come in front of the creator of the universe, we've got you covered. What do we say, Kal Nidre? Yom Kippur night. Yeah? What do we say right before Kal Nidre? Bishiva shel mala ubishiva shel mata harei anachnu matirim להתפלל. You know this, Kal Nidre? Ashkenazim say im, Sephardim say et ha'avaryanim. Tonight, we accept to pray with the criminals. Which criminals? All the people that come to the synagogue that usually they have good reason that we don't want them here, but they're here tonight. We're telling the Kadosh Baruch Hu tonight we come as one united front. Tonight we are one people. That Chazan standing in front of the community represents all of us equally. None of us are going to sell each other out tonight. I'm not going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look at me, but not at her, because no, tonight we come as one. That's the whole purpose of these high holidays. How can we come together as one in front of the Creator of the universe? And therefore he says, chapter 2, on page 6, Tzarich ha'adam, the person is required. Sheshum siba shel ha'olam lo timna'ehu melehetiv. That there should be no reason on earth that stops you from doing good for other people. ושום עוון ומעשה בני אדם בלתי הגון לא ייכנס לפניו כדי שיעכבהו מלהיטיב לאותם הצריכים טובתו בכל עת ובכל רגע. There is nothing that a person can do that should make you not want to help them when they need your help. It's not easy. It's not an easy character trait to acquire. But this should be your character trait. Even if I don't like you, even if I struggle with you, I still want to help you. In the Talmud, there was a story. I just dealt with a couple recently getting divorced. You know, when couples get divorced, it's normal that people get divorced. It's normal. It happens. I know we stigmatize it a lot. I'm not saying it's pleasant, but it's normal. It happens. Two people get in a relationship. It wasn't really a good relationship. But I can tell a lot about a couple, about those individuals, the way they get divorced. There's an ad in San Diego. It's a big billboard. It's a divorce attorney. It's say, hire us before she does. That's the billboard. One guy once told me, I'm a divorce attorney. I'll wipe up the floor with your ex-wife. That's the kind of person you want to be? Somebody you had kids with? Somebody you lived with for 10 years, 15 years, 8 years, one day, but you loved each other? You shared secrets with each other? So now what do? You walk around town sharing all the secrets? Oh, he was a criminal, he was a good-for-nothing. Well, then you're saying you lived for 20 years with a criminal. Is that what you want to be saying? Is that what you're saying? Why can't you just say it didn't work out? It didn't work out. We're two good people that are going in two very different directions. We have kids together. Why should they suffer because of us? We'll do whatever we can. Why should we trash talk to our kids about each other? What does it help? You can learn a lot about a person by the way they dissolve relationships. Not by the way they, in relationships, you know the guy, he opens the door for her, she makes him dinner. That's all wonderful when everything's going great. But once it stops going great, there's a rabbi in Spain. His name was Rabbi Shlomo Ibn Gabiro. Have you heard of him? There's a famous poet. He wrote some of the songs that you know, Rabbi Shlomo Ibn Gabiro. When he was asked, how should you choose a friend? How do you choose a friend? He said, don't choose a friend based on his friendship with you. Because every friend wants to be nice to you. Choose a friend by saying, if this person was to become my enemy, would they betray my secrets? Or would they still be a good person even when they're my enemy? Choose friends based on what they would look like as your enemies, not as your friends. It's a very important message. We have an obligation to treat people, it's not easy, but to treat people like good people even when they're not good people. And just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives life to the little eggs of insects in the earth and to the greatest animals on earth, so too we should do the same thing. כך צריך שיהיה האדם מיטיב לכל ולא יתבזה שום נברא לפניו. There's no creature in the world, animal, human being, any creature in the world that doesn't deserve your kindness and compassion. You're all creatures, creations of God. God takes care of all of them equally. We should do the same thing. And therefore he says, the last sentence on page 6. Lama esna mi sha'akadosh baruch hu ohev. What happens if you have a hard time loving people, being nice to people? You should remember this one sentence. Why do I hate somebody that God clearly loves? How do I know that God loves them? Are they here today? Are they alive right now? Are they breathing? Are they drinking? Does God give them a parnasah, a livelihood? Then it must be that he sees some purpose in them. Now, I hate them? What kind of human being am I that I hate somebody that my Creator loves? I taught a class in Ecuador last week, Wednesday night. And I told them, you have to know something. I was once asked by a Catholic person why my God is so special. That's a very silly question to ask me, but it's a good question. He asked me a question. As you want to know what's so special about my God? Your Pope, who lives in Rome, spends his whole life undermining my Creator. Everything he does, every action he takes, every word he speaks, exists to undermine the Jewish people, Judaism, and the God of the Jewish people. You know what my God does every day? My God wakes up and gives him food, and water and a job and fancy robes and a lot of money and a driver. My God takes care of him even though he doesn't care about my God. That's the kind of God that I want to worship. That's the kind of creator I want to be in a relationship with. I was telling you about divorce for a reason. One of the rabbis of the Talmud, he got divorced and his wife remarried him. It could even be that his wife left him for another man. This other man that she married was very, very poor. And this rabbi would go every week and put envelopes of money under her door. And when somebody caught him saying, hey, why are you taking care of your ex-wife? She left you for another guy. What are you busy taking care of her? And he said, she used to be part of my flesh. She used to be Shaar besari. I married her once. Our flesh fused into one. So what that she's with another man now? But I still have a responsibility towards her. Imagine creating Jewish people like that. Where I say, you know what? I don't know about all the mitzvot. If the Jewish people know exactly how many cups of hot water you're supposed to pour before you put a tea bag on Shabbat. Maybe not every person in this room is particular. If you take the bones out of your fish or the fish out of your bones and separating on Shabbat, or I don't know if you're so careful when you take the Torah out, if you walk in the right direction or the left direction. But imagine if we created a community of Jewish people where our standards were, how could I hate somebody that the creator of the universe loves? How could it be there's another creature on this earth that I think isn't worthy of life, but my creator clearly thinks they are worthy of life? When I come before the creator of the universe on Yom Kippurim, we will be judged the same way that we judge other people. We will be treated the same way we treat other people. Is that really the attitude that we want to come to the high holidays with? God, give me a wonderful New Year. Shana Tova u'metuka, but to him, make sure he dies this year. Shana Tova u'metuka, but that person, yeah, send an extra doses of punishment for what they did to me last year. That's how you want to come to the creator of the universe? Like a petty little child? Maybe come to the creator of the universe with your head held high, saying, I genuinely forgive other people. Even if I stay away from them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want you to do good to them because they deserve it. I want you to do good to them because that's what I want for the whole world. I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want anyone to hurt. And I think that when we prepare ourselves for this season, so much of the work that we do is done on stopping to do averot, cleanse ourselves in this way, cleanse ourselves that way. We focus on all kinds of very small, very easy things to do. You know, it's really easy to keep Shabbat. You know how you do it? Take some duct tape and duct tape yourself to the wall and just don't do anything for 25 hours. You will not violate any of Shabbat. But that's not what the creator of the universe put you in this world to do. Imagine that there are people that have hurt you this year. Imagine. They exist. I'm sure they exist. I'm not asking you to go be friends with them. That's not always the safest plan. But imagine that you could say, if they ever need me, I'll be here for them. If they reach out to me, I'll do something for them. Do you remember Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our forefather? He's got a very complicated family member. Who am I talking about? Lavan. What's the deal with Lavan? What kind of guy is Lavan? He's an idol worshiper, maybe, yeah. He lives in Sodom. The guy's not a good guy. He doesn't live in a good place. At a certain point, he wants to run away with Avraham. Now, Avraham is busy trying to raise a family. He wants them to believe in God. He wants them to be good people. It's really complicated to be Avraham, by the way. You've got one son who's Jewish, and another son who's an Arab. It's a complicated reality over here. Yishmael is one son, Yitzchak is another son. It's already a struggle in his home. Now he's got this relative that comes from Sodom that wants to hang around him. Avraham recognizes it isn't good for my family. So what does he tell him? You know what he tells him? He says, the whole world is before you. Everything in the world is yours. You take first pick. You go right, I'll go left. You go left, I'll go right. I just don't want to go to the same place as you. But when you need me, you'll know exactly where to find me. Avraham recognizes I don't have to live with you and be your best friend, and people talk about coexistence, let's all put our hands together and sing Kumbaya. And that is not always the best way to deal with humanity. It's not the best situation. Imagine the following scenario. Imagine if in Portland we would decide to make one great synagogue of Portland. I'm going to get it's political a little bit. We'll get all the Sephardic synagogues together. We'll get the Ashkenazi synagogues together. Reform, conservative, Orthodox, Chabad. We'll put everybody in one big building. We're going to get all the biggest donors. We'll have a beautiful sanctuary because we want peace in the Jewish community of Portland. And then Friday night happens. It's Friday night, 6:30, the sun's setting. It's time to lead services. Who's going to lead services? The guy with the guitar? The chazan, who's a lady from the other synagogue? The man who's from Chabad? Which siddur are you going to use? Which prayer book? Which rabbi is going to give the sermon? Or what are they going to say? What's going to happen on that Friday night is World War III in Portland. It'll be the greatest operation to undermine Jewish unity on the face of this earth. Because it sounds really nice. Let's all get together. Let's all be friends. We're all one family. It's wonderful. It's true. All that is true. Just because we're all one family doesn't mean that we don't all need our space. We need the space to do things differently. You know why people go to Reform or conservative temples? They feel stifled inside of Orthodox ones. Is it right? Is it wrong? Nobody asked me for my opinion. But for them, that's what works. I have students, part of the Shiviti Beit Midrash, female Reform rabbis. They love to learn with me. But I know that if they spent one Shabbat in my synagogue behind a mechitza, not getting an aliyah, they're going to feel like it was the most miserable Shabbat in their life. And so it's proper for me to say, I respect that you don't pray with me on Shabbat, but come learn with me on Sunday. Because there are things we can do together, and there are things that we can't do together. We can do Thanksgiving dinner together. But every week, Friday night dinner with your mother-in-law, that may not be the best way to do this. You ever put in your YouTube browser? Thanksgiving dinner gone wrong. In America, it's a complicated thing. People have one kid or two kids, they live on the other side of the country, and then they get together once a year. They get together for Thanksgiving, and that's one meal together too many. You see people breaking windows, breaking chairs, throwing turkeys at each other. Who thought it was a good idea to get everyone? There's a reason why you live in Minnesota and you live in California. It's a reason for it. You guys couldn't handle living in the same state. Now you thought it was a good idea to bring them together and have lunch with each other? That wasn't a great idea. That wasn't the brightest one. Because I really want to get along with my husband's family, but my mother-in-law's a jerk. What do I do? Very simple. Get along with her by not living right next door to her. Give her her space. Get together for short amounts of time, like Avraham and Lot. When you need me, I'll be there, but I'm not going to live with you. Why? Because what's going to happen if I live with your mother? What's going to happen if I live with your mother? I'll start cursing at her and fighting with her. You think that respects your husband's parents or your wife's parents when you disrespect them all day long? We have this notion of unity. Achadut means let's all get together, let's all be together, let's all live together. It's a disaster to do such a thing. The recognition is we love each other. I will be there for you. Just don't keep me near you always. What Judaism suggests for us is something that's highly practical. The other version of unity is highly impractical. It's not going to happen. The Jewish people were always 12 tribes. They were never one tribe. It never happened. It's part of our tradition. Some of our rabbis even say that when the sea split, you guys know Midrashim? According to the Torah, the sea split, the Jews crossed the sea. Yes? According to the rabbis in the Talmud, the sea split how many times? 12 times. Every tribe walked in their own road. Because even then, it would have been a complicated situation if we all walked together. That's not a bad thing. That's the way the human beings are. But when you put human beings to the test, when I need you, when I need your help, are you there for me? You know, there's a law in the laws of tzedakah. Hilchot tzedakah.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Remember when the Gulf War broke out, a lot of people were fighting, but when we came together, the whole country, left, right, center, we all came together to help America out. That's a good sample. We were all separated, we thought different, we came together.
When it matters, we come together. That's very important. It's very important. And I was going to tell you now a story, but I forgot what I was going to tell you. Tzedakah, thank you. They tell a story about two guys in Rome. One guy is selling crosses with Jesus hanging off of them, and one is selling Israeli flags. And they're standing next to each other. And everybody comes, sees an Israeli flag, and spits on him and buys a cross, and then walks away. It happens the whole day. They come, they spit in the guy with the Israeli flag, they buy a cross, and they walk away. At a certain point, the priest who's watching from the corner, he comes over and says, listen, I just want to tell you that I don't know if you're in the right city to be selling Israeli flags. Right outside of the Vatican, it's not exactly the place. You probably should go. There's an Israeli consulate in Rome. Maybe you want to go to Israel and sell by the Western Wall. It's not the best place to sell Israeli flags. And as he's doing that, another guy comes, you're selling Israeli flags? Spit on the Israeli, takes a cross and leaves. And the guy selling the flags turns to the guy selling the crosses, says, Moshe, look who's trying to teach us how to do business. Two Israeli guys, they figured out a business plan. How do you get people to buy crosses? By selling Israeli flags. This is a reality. There's a halakha. Halakha says that when you see a Jewish person and a non-Jewish person, and both of them are collecting money, you have to give to both of them. You can't say, I only give to Jewish people and give to the Jewish person. Why? The Talmud says you don't want to create hatred, animosity towards the Jewish people. Oh, look, the Jews only take care of themselves. There was a Sephardic rabbi in Tel Aviv. His name was Rabbi Chaim David Halevi. He was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, Yafo. And he says, I'm living to wait for the day where Jewish people give charity to non-Jewish people, not because they don't want to be hated, but because they recognize it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for human beings to take care of other human beings. If you look at your Rosh Hashanah prayer book, do you recognize that for the Jewish people, Rosh Hashanah is not the New Year? Our day of forgiveness is when? When do Jewish people get forgiven by the Creator? Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim. So what's Rosh Hashanah all about? Rosh Hashanah is not our New Year. Rosh Hashanah is the New Year for the rest of the world. Look at the Siddur. Look at the High Holiday Prayer Book for Rosh Hashanah. On the kingdoms, on all the people in the world that are traveling, on all the different countries, on all of the other nations and their armies, we pray for all of those people. Because our job is to take care of the world. The world doesn't know Rosh Hashanah is when they're judged for health or for life or for death. So we pray for them. Yom Kippurim, we retreat to our private little corner. The Jewish people pray for themselves. But 99% of the prayer of Rosh Hashanah is not for Jewish people. It's for non-Jewish people. Part of this high holiday season is to recognize that we are all children of the same Father. We are all part of the same world. Absolutely. Can you imagine that? On Sukkot, all the nations of the world would offer sacrifices in Jerusalem. Can you imagine if every religious denomination in Portland would want to come pray here on Sukkot? What would you do if the Greek Orthodox priests wanted to come, along with the Muslim sheikhs and the Buddhist monks? No, but not sending. They want to come here to pray. That's what we did in the Beit Mikdash every year. How do you reach such a place? You can only reach such a place if you recognize that we're all part of the same story. The Jewish people internally have to recognize that first. The Jewish people have to say, it's okay, we have all our denominations and all our groups and all of our preferences, that's fine, but are we really there for each other? Would we be there for our our competition, our synagogue that we think is undermining our membership? Will we be there for them when they need us? If that answer is yes, then you walk into Rosh Hashanah because you're ready. If the answer is no, then there's what to do, and we have a few more weeks to do it. If you think about the people that wronged you this last year, and you say, do I want to be their friend? No, that's okay. But do I want to hurt them? If the answer there is yes, you're not okay. If they needed my help, would I help them? If the answer there is no, we're not okay yet. This is our job. This is what we're working on. When I spoke to you about Teshuvah with love the last 2 weeks, the purpose was to bring you here. The ultimate show of love. You want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to love you? Show him that you love his children. If you love someone's children, 10 out of 10 chance they're going to love you. B'ezrat Hashem, I bless us all. Should be a Shana Tova U'Metuka. Should be a good year for all of us. We should show the Creator of the universe that we love each other, that we love all of his children. And in turn, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do for us in the holidays what the prophet says, Ahavti etchem amar Adonai. I love you too, says the Creator of the universe. When we show him that we can love, he will show us that he can love us too. And as the famous poet, this one is really a poet, not the Israeli guy from before, Na'aleh la'artzenu b'shir u'v'zimra. We should go back to our homeland with singing, with happiness, because we can recognize that even there, when it looks so complicated and it looks so scary, and if you've been watching the news for the last year coming out of Israel, you probably worry about what's going on in Israel. One thing you can recognize, that if we can teach the Jewish people and then the world this message, that we don't have to agree with each other to be friends. We don't have to all think the same way to be there for each other. And then the redemption, it's already here. The time for that redemption has already come. It's time to have compassion on Zion, because the time has come. It's been 2,000 years of exile. Portland's been nice, Cheva, but Jerusalem's even better. And God willing, I will be with you on the high holidays already there. We'll be praying on the Temple Mount together. We'll be singing with the Kohen Gadol, with the High Priest, with the King Mashiach, with the Moshe Rabbeinu. B'ezrat Hashem, I hope to see that happen. But if not, at least when you pray here in Portland, have me in mind, just like I'll be praying for you. I hope you'll be praying for me. We should pray for each other's families, and we should be written and inscribed in a good book of life. God willing.